Jimmie Walker, the unforgettable face behind J.J. Evans, the loud-mouthed exuberant, wide-eyed eldest son on Norman Lear's socially resonant sitcom Good Times, has long carried the weight of his legacy with an uneven balance of pride, frustration, and unresolved emotion, yet never before has he opened up as deeply or candidly about the fractured, complex relationship he shared with the show's matriarch, the late, great Esther Rolle, whose portrayal of Florida Evans wasn't just an acting role but a mission, a crusade to elevate and protect the image of black motherhood on national television. And now, after decades of silence marked by speculation, whispers, and long misunderstandings, Walker has chosen to break his silence, laying bare the raw emotional truth about what really happened behind the scenes, the tension that smoldered just beneath the surface of their fictional family, and the enduring regret he carries for never reconciling with a woman who was, to millions of viewers, the embodiment of dignity, grace, and power. As he begins by acknowledging that the bond viewers saw on screen, those touching mother-son moments, the gentle scoldings, the loving embraces, were often in stark contrast to the chilly distance that existed when the camera stopped rolling. And while he once dismissed their differences as professional disagreements, he now admits that he failed to grasp the full depth of Rolle's passion for accurate, honorable representation of black family life. And in hindsight, he recognizes that her stern demeanor and unyielding standards were born not from arrogance but from a deep, ancestral well of responsibility, that she felt she was carrying the hopes of generations on her shoulders. And that burden left little room for compromise when it came to how black characters were written, portrayed, and perceived, especially on a show that had been pitched as a rare chance to portray an intact, loving African-American family in the inner city, a show that, in its earliest conception, was meant to offer not just laughs, but lessons, community, reflection, and pride. Yet as the episodes aired, and JJ's catchphrases became national punchlines, as ratings soared on the back of broad comedy rather than thoughtful storytelling, Rolle began to feel that the show was being hijacked, transformed into a minstrel show dressed in polyester, where nuance was replaced with slapstick and her beloved family dynamic was reduced to caricature. And Walker, young and riding the high of sudden stardom, failed to understand the damage she saw unfolding, failed to see that his increasing screen time and comedic dominance, though celebrated by fans, was to her a dangerous shift that threatened to erode everything the show was supposed to stand for. And though they exchanged lines on set, though they laughed in rehearsals and performed with a chemistry so believable that even critics praised them as one of the most authentic mother-son duos on television, the air between them was thick with unspoken conflict, with hurt and resentment that never found voice or release. And Walker now concedes that he avoided confrontation, that he took her silence and her stern looks as personal judgments, when in fact they were cries of frustration, of disappointment, that no one, least of all her on-screen sons, seemed to be listening to her pleas to preserve the integrity of their art. And he remembers moments vividly now that he once brushed off: the day she walked off set in protest, the time she refused to film a scene she felt made the family look foolish, the whispered conversations with producers where her vision was gently sidelined for the sake of a laugh track. And he remembers thinking, in his youthful ignorance, that she was being difficult, hard to work with, unable to let go. But now, he sees her not as a difficult actress, but as a warrior, as someone who had seen too many roles for black women, reduced to sassy housekeepers or tragic victims, and who had finally been given a voice and a platform, and was determined not to squander it. And he admits with a heavy heart that he didn't support her when she needed it, that he didn't join her in pushing back against the network, that he didn't see that her fight wasn't against him, but against a system that had always devalued black stories unless they were filtered through a lens of comedy or pain. And he remembers the awkward silence on the set when she left the show, the sense of something sacred being broken. And though the show continued without her for a time, though the ratings remained strong, he felt something shift, something die, and he never felt the same joy performing again. And when she returned for the later seasons, there was no grand reunion, no tearful reconciliation, just a professional coolness, a quiet truce that never addressed the emotional elephant in the room. And when the series finally ended, they went their separate ways, both haunted in their own ways by what had been lost. And over the years, as he attended conventions, signed autographs, answered fan questions about Good Times, he always kept his comments measured, careful, and when asked about Rolle, he would smile politely and give a generic response, unwilling to open the door to the pain and guilt he had long buried. But now, older, more reflective, and unburdened by the demands of fame, Walker shares that he has spent years thinking about her, about what she meant to the culture, about what she meant to him, even if they never said it aloud. And he recounts seeing her speak at an NAACP event long after the show ended, hearing her thunderous voice declare that representation is not a luxury but a necessity, and feeling a lump in his throat because, for the first time, he truly heard her, truly understood what she had been trying to protect all those years ago. And he describes the ache of seeing her obituary, of realizing that the chance to make peace was forever gone, and he reveals that he attended her funeral in silence, anonymously, sitting in the back, weeping behind dark glasses not just for her passing but for all the moments they never had, for the apology he never gave, for the recognition he never offered. And he tells of a dream he once had, not long after she died, in which they were back on the set, in the old apartment set with the worn furniture and faded walls, and she looked at him and smiled, not the stoic Florida smile, but a real one, and said, "It's all right, baby." And he woke up sobbing because he knew it was his subconscious giving him the closure he never received in life, and he now dedicates his reflections to her legacy, to her fight, to her brilliance, stating with quiet conviction that Esther Rolle was the moral compass of Good Times, that without her the show would have been hollow, that her presence gave the series its soul. And he urges young actors today to understand the responsibility they carry, to use their platform not just for fame but for truth, for dignity, for the betterment of those who see themselves in the characters they portray. And as he continues to honor her memory in interviews, in private moments of prayer, in quiet tears that come unexpectedly, he knows that telling the truth now, however little, is a step toward healing, that by finally speaking her name with reverence and vulnerability, he is offering a long overdue tribute to the woman who helped shape not only his career, but his conscience. And though the world may remember them as mother and son on television, he will forever carry the deeper memory of a woman who stood unshakable in her beliefs, who fought a lonely battle for representation, and whose legacy endures, not just in reruns and nostalgia, but in the hearts of all who understand that truth in art requires courage, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak when everyone else is laughing.